Okay. So you should be able to hear us now. So if you can please confirm that you can hear us, that would be great. Yep. Okay, good. So we are going to go ahead and get started this morning. For those of you who are on the phone that didn't hear my full introduction, please make sure that you do have your materials that were sent to you in your meeting invite handy. You're going to be using those materials throughout the next 2.5 days. And the first thing that we're going to start with is number 18. It is the introductory session. So you should be able to see it on my screen and may not actually need this, but should you need it, go ahead and you can pull it up. You can use it to take notes. Oh, and that just reminded me, if you do have cell phones with you, please do put them on mute. If your phone doesn't have a mute function, that's prevents that. And we do want to make sure that we go ahead and keep our phones quiet. We know that there are emergency procurements and emergency questions that come up. If you do get a call, feel free to walk out of the room and take that call. We've got a little bit of activity going on in the room, still working on some equipment issues. So hopefully we will actually get a better phone. And I've gotten one yes on can you hear me? Can I get another person or two to respond and let me know if you can hear me? Yes, I have another yes. Okay, so we should be good there. Okay, so the first question we have here, let's see. Are you able to respond to any of these people that are? We do have one person who said they're having some issues. So if you're sending an email, that's great. Okay. Are you there? Do you need?
I'm just trying to get your phone working.
Right.
And it's registering. It's like a bit of a maybe.
Okay. Okay, great. Beth, do you think the system then will be able to recall this number? We called into this phone, and that's this phone up right now.
Oh, I see. I think it's here. There should be an option to call it another number.
Okay.
Like disconnect your audio and reconnect your audio only. So basically, probably another. Are you doing through Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can look at that while that's registering.
Okay. Should we have some sort of leave this call?
You can. I won't be.
Okay.
So,
we'll keep you.
I can try to take a look real quick while that's coming up, if you want me to.
Okay.
Okay. I had no idea that yeah. Just
For those of you on the phone, there's someone looking at our phone trying to give us a better phone option. So we will be back to the presentation in just a moment.
Still want to mess you up, so thinking here before I do anything.
While he's working on that, I have a question that I wanted to ask, both for people who are on the phone as well as folks who are in the room. So for people who have done procurement, forget about bid buy, forget about anything else, how many people would say that they've done procurement for 30 years or more? Anyone procuring stuff for 30 years? 25 years? 20 years? Yeah, let's show hands like, yeah. Got a couple that have got 20 years. 15 years? Got a 15-year procured. And your procurement for 15 years, a little more federal, right? A little federal. I've got that. Got 15 back in the corner, and you're county, right? we've got some federal experience, we've got some school experience, we've got state experience, 10 years or more, 10 years, 5 years, 5 years, and between 1 and 5. How many of you have done that for less than a year? Wow. Okay, so procurement-wise, I would say that we had about 50% of the room show us that they have been doing procurement for less than a year. So
for those of you that are on the phone, I know that the sound is a little bit muffled, so I just wanted to let you know that we do have a phone expert in our room, and we will be disconnecting our audio soon. And if you could just stay on the line, we are going to call in with a new phone that he has set up to hopefully help with that audio for you, so I apologize.
Okay, I just want to make sure before I hit it. There you are. I'm trying to find you on.
So good news is, anyway, let's start today. For those of you who have been doing procurement for a long time, you know how to get procurement done. But using BidBuy is a little different for you because BidBuy hasn't done what you've always done for the last 5 or 10, 15, or 20 years. For those of you who are new to procurement and new to BidBuy, how exciting. So you get to learn 2 things at once. Good news for you guys is you get to learn procurement in BidBuy. So you will have 20 years of, well, look at that form we used to use kind of thing and all that historical background. So no matter which side of this you're coming from, whether you've been doing it for a number of years or you're brand new, hopefully as we get used to this, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable because of the BidBuy system. Which also brings up another point, which is our function is BidBuy. So we're all procurement people. All those programs work on the BidBuy system. Our procurement people still for a number of years in a variety of functions, whether it's at the agencies or the field office. But we are really focused in this class on the BidBuy system. How do you get done what you want to get done in BidBuy? Same thing is true when you get back to your agencies and you have a question, and your question, you're not quite sure if it's a procurement question or it's a BidBuy question. So procurement questions, we're not your resource for that. Your procurement questions need to stay with your APO and with your SPO, who will answer you and give you the best answer within your agency. Every agency does things a little bit different, so if you ask us at BidBuy, we might give you the wrong answer because we may not know exactly what you do out in your agency. And that's really part of my presentation this morning in terms of the benefits of BidBuy. One of the benefits is it gives us a consistent platform across the agencies, but it still allows for some flexibility out of the agency. So your agency may have specific requirements that are specific to your agency. You have those requirements, and you have those requirements. And BidBuy will just serve really as your help. We're done with it? Okay. I am now holding a phone like a microphone, which is different for me. But hopefully that will be better for all of you out there, and you'll be able to better hear me. So let me go ahead, and we'll start going through our presentation. So one of the important things to know about BidBuy is that BidBuy is a joint initiative between CMS and the CPO's office. So back when BidBuy was first envisioned, we at the agency, at the CPO's office, with lots of paper and lots of email, and when you went to go find stuff, sometimes it was difficult. And so the problem was, what can we do, to make this easier, to make this work better? And that's where BitBuy came from. Both CMS and the CPO's office recognized that there was a need to have an electronic integrated cloud-based approach. So this is a cloud-based system. What does that mean, and why do you care if it's a cloud-based system? So the main thing to know about being a cloud-based system is that we customized a system that we got from a vendor. The vendor does nothing but run an e-procurement government-based software system. And they have multiple states and cities and jurisdictions that use this system. So it is cloud-based. It was not custom developed for the state of Illinois. We did not customize it, but what we did do is configure it. So if you're working in BidBuy and you have a question to say, why do I have to go from here to here? Wouldn't it, make more sense? We have worked in basically many more than 2 years to configure this system to best meet all the statutory requirements of the state of Illinois, considering that we bought an off-the-shelf system. Why did we go with a cloud system instead of maybe creating a customized system? The reason we went with a cloud system, for one of the reasons, is DOIT has had a long-standing direction to move the state to cloud-based computing. So DOIT and its predecessor. So that's the state direction. The state direction electronically has been to move rather than state-developed systems over to cloud-based off-the-shelf systems. Integration. So does BidBuy stand alone because it's a cloud-based system out in the cloud? The answer to that is no. It's not a standalone system. So one of the things during this whole long process of configuring the system has been also to integrate it into other state systems. So it is integrated into the IPG and BEP, and we'll talk more about that later. It's also integrated to PPB, and those of you who are familiar with the PPB clearinghouse, where procurements get reported, it's integrated into that, and also as part of the waiver process. And we are live in our integration now with the state's new SAP system. So it is not a standalone system. The answer to that is no, it is not a standalone system. It is an integrated system that works with other state systems, hopefully to streamline the processes and make it easier. Things that are remaining the same, things that aren't different now that we're in BidBuy. There are still all the requirements for procurement justification forms, so that has not changed. We're still using the NIGP codes that we started using a few years ago for procurements, and the Comptroller's Office still does require wet ink contracts. So we're a mostly electronic e-procurement system, but there still are some traditional processes that are required, and one of those is that you continue to obtain wet ink contracts. And we're going to talk a lot about that this morning. We had a comment from someone saying that they're seeing some boxes covering. I can keep this. Okay, hopefully that helps. I'm going to look back out at our audience. Okay, a lot of my boxes. Okay. So what is BidBuy? And essentially, especially for those of you that are doing it, some of you may not know all of these old systems that used to be used to do procurement in the state, but BidBuy is replacing the Remedy PDC system, the manual survey process that used to go on. The Illinois Procurement Bulletin is now BidBuy. The procurement file is now BidBuy, and that one we cannot stress enough. The procurement file is BidBuy. So anything that you would normally maintain in your procurement file is now to be maintained in BidBuy, which becomes your procurement file. That is everything, including emails, any communications, anything that you would normally have in your procurement paper file needs to be in BidBuy. And then all of the CPO, SPO, and your agency approvals. We actually should make that change on this slide. So all of the approval process, or when I say all, most all of the approvals that you're going to be required to get now occur electronically within BidBuy. So legacy systems, why are we doing this? And I talked about that a little bit. But, you know, we have legacy systems. That would be fantastic. Okay, for those, one more pause, and they're going to get a better sound system going for those of you who are out there.
Well, I got audio conference for the share my desk. And then she's got all the purpose stuff on the side. Yeah. What? Yeah, Diana. Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm looking for that, but see, it's not listed the way you described. You've got those three things: audio conference, like remote, share my desktop, but they're kind of like triangulated, so I don't know if this is play out. I don't think it. I think we're looking at hyper.
And for those of you who are out there on the phone, if you want to take a 5-minute break, we'll start back again, hopefully at 9:20 with better audio.
Literally from the phone. Oh.
Make sure we're rejoined. Yep, audio connected. We're good. Okay, I knew it'd be simple, but I did not want to just. Okay, great. Thank you, Patrick. Oh. No. I don't know, and these people are not DCFS. They're from. Are you from CMS?
We're from the CPOGS.
CPOGS? CPOGS. So it's not probably an apples to apples as far as my experience. Oh, that's a different one. Okay, that's fine. We can talk all that out. So, but they're connected. So, okay, all right. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Okay. I'll tell the lady, if you have to change, all you do is hang up your phone, and then it'll give you a prompt to rejoin, and it says call me at a different number if you just like that. So I knew it was something like that. I just like I said, yeah, a lot going here. And okay, thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Okay. And then you can probably either mute there or there if you need to, you know, in the future.
Okay, and what is the phone number of that phone?
786-217. 786-0218. Yeah, it was pretty simple, but I was just a little afraid it would have. Okay.
So you can just hang up, it'll prompt you to recall, and then you put in, call me at another number.
Right, your last number you used will be in there for convenience, but then there's ability to put whatever number you want. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad it's working.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Amy, it's asking me if I want to share monitor 1 or 2.
Oh, here. I say 2. I don't know why. Okay, 2. I say 2. If you wanted to extend. Yes, that was 2. Do 2. Okay.
That's it? We're good? Okay. Larry, is there a guy named Joe Mines that do it, or something that sounds like Joe Mines?
I don't think so. Not that I know of. Sol Vincent. Sol Vincent. He's in procurement. ICN though. He's in procurement. But every time somebody at work says Joel, I automatically think of this Joel for some reason. I haven't worked with this Joel in 4 years, but every time they say Joel, I think of you. I think this Joel every time.
That's what I was saying. I was on the call, and I thought I was having a conversation with Joe Mines that do it. And I'm like, oh, Joe, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And Catherine was telling him to say, no, Lori, you're not talking to the person you think you're talking to. I was like, okay. So I have the same problem.
Yeah, it has to be him because he's procurement.
Okay.
Joel Vincent.
Vincent, okay. If you say it on the phone really fast, it sounds like mine.
Really fast.
Really fast. Like maybe you were drinking or something. Joel Vincent. Okay. Oh, this is great. Now we don't have any more problems.
You better not talk to him.
Can I hear it?
Yeah, we might want to ask that. Let's see. That's actually a really good question. But, you know what? Samantha, my WebEx ball is gone.
Your what?
My WebEx ball is gone.
It's supposed to be when you're sharing your findings.
Ah.
It's on that screen too.
I don't, but if I come up, my drop down isn't coming down.
Up on this.
So I can only see it there. Who thought of that? Okay. So if we could get a mouse, I would be so happy because then I could do this, right? But now, instead, I have to look. Can you fix that for me? And I'm not seeing my mouse up there.
Maybe try going the other way.
Okay, sure.
your mouse on the cord.
Hmm.
Right there.
Okay. We're going to have to change this up.
Amy's getting you.
Okay. So, for everyone who's with us via WebEx, can you hear me? Not everyone has to respond, but can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. Yep, yes.
Awesome.
There you go.
Great.
I don't know how you want that around your coffee.
Built-in box.
There you go. Should be set.
Okay. So,
Okay, this is where you'll want to either take that chat feature to your other screen or close out of it so that they don't see that hand box on the screen.
okay. Well, as soon as I do this. Okay. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about what the benefits are of BidBuy. So why did we do it? And I think you probably pretty easy to figure out. The legacy systems are no longer being supported. So all those things we just went through, Remedy and the PBC system, they just literally were no longer supported. But we also really had a desire to do an increase in strategic procurement. So by strategic procurement, you know, we had a lot of procurement in the agencies on paper and a lot of things going on, and a lot of it we could see, but there was a lot of it that we couldn't see to leverage the state's buying power, right? To be able to say, well, look, you know, we have all of these agencies that are out individually procuring this. We can create better contracts, master contracts. We can decrease the cost to the state, and it's probably one of the main drivers. And then just basically the gained efficiencies. So for those of you who have been working in BidBuy, you might be thinking, well, that, you know, I knew how to do it before, and I thought I was pretty efficient, and you probably were really efficient. But ideally, with the system that we have, and we're starting to get good feedback, you know, the workflows are working well, the automated approvals, creating that easy audit trail that's very easy to see. And of course, there's always bumps along the way in implementation, which is the phase that we're really just wrapping up now. But we're expecting to replace lots of systems that required support, and we're going to integrate procurement processes, and we're going to be consistent across the state where there's a benefit to be consistent, and agencies are still going to have the flexibility when there's a benefit to being flexible. The other thing is there's a central contract inventory that we can go in, take a look at. It's much easier to find who has what contract, what's available, what is out there. So those are all the drivers that took us down this path. So vendor registration was live quite a long time ago, and vendors are registering in the system. I think the number is somewhere in the area. Does anyone know off the top of their head, Amy, how many vendors we have registered in BidBuy?
Yeah, it was like 10,000.
Yeah, so we have a lot. Yeah, a lot of vendors. So about 10,000 vendors that are live or that are registered in the system. For release off of master contracts, we went live with that back in October of 17, and full procurement go live began on January 1st of 18. So we've been at it about 8 months now, 7 to 8 months now. And I have to say, I'm just incredibly pleased. I mean, we get questions, we're able to answer them, everything is working well. Our go live has been much smoother than I actually anticipated it to be, so it's been very good. And one of the reasons, again, is because of us. So we have lots of, and by us I mean everyone that's on this call and everyone that's in this room, people who are going to be responsible for training at your agency. Reference manuals. So we have comprehensive step-by-step manuals. We have process manuals that get deep into state processes. We have the mini job aids that many of you may have used. That is just a cheat sheet that you put next to your computer when you're using BidBuy, and you can go down and see your quick steps to getting things done. We've got templates for you when you go back and have to train staff. We have instructor guides available for you when you have to go back and do training. We have the PowerPoint presentations on a broad, all of the subjects. There's one or two still out there that we're finishing up, but when I say hundreds of support documents for you as trainers, we have hundreds of support documents that you can use, as well as examples and exercises. And we're going to go through and use a lot of those today so that you get comfortable with them. Something that's really key, and for those of you, that have been doing this a while, you've probably heard this 1,000 times. Our support process that we do for end users always starts with the BidBuy trainer. So you as the trainer should become your resident expert, and if one of the users at your agency has a question, they should come to you. When you don't have that answer, you may need to take that to your APO, or you may need to take it to your SPO, and when all of that fails, that's when you contact our help desk, which is state user help desk. And that's when you can reach out to us. We have a very good turnaround time. I think generally most questions are probably answered within, a couple of hours, and certainly most of them within a day or a couple of days. So we're able right now to do that. The other thing, though, to point out is, key to getting a quick answer when you need an answer for BidBuy is asking the right person. And oftentimes, it's a contract-specific question. So it's a question that's going to go back to Do It, or it's a question that's going to go back to CMS. When you think about that question, does this have anything to do with BidBuy? Does this have anything to do with the procurement code? Or do I really have a question about line item 32 on this contract? And if the answer is yes, I have a question about line item 32 on this contract, then the person you're going to reach out to is the buyer on the contract. So that's our help desk process. That's how we make order out of all of the questions, and like I said, it's working well. So just in terms of our overview, not why did you guys not have the phone working or anything like that, does anyone have any questions about why we're doing BidBuy and the benefits of BidBuy so that when you go back and do training, you can explain that to everyone? I'm going to pull up my questions. Let's turn around. Let's see if we have any questions out there. This will get smoother, I promise you. So, okay, great. Sounds like everyone's hearing us better, and I don't see any questions coming up. For those of you who are using the chat feature for your questions, feel free to send any question you have at any time, and we'll always make sure that we get back to it. So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you, starting to get a little bit into the technical content, is in the packet of materials that you have, you're going to have a series of appendices. The reason I'm pointing these out right now is you may be using them throughout the next couple of days. And so they should be pretty high up in your packet of materials, and they look like this. You'll have an Appendix A, an Appendix, believe it or not, B, then we have an Appendix C, and an Appendix D, and Appendix E. So I wanted to bring these to your attention and just give you a brief overview of what these appendices will do for you. Again, these are reference documents that you're going to use on a regular basis when you're working in BidBuy. Your Appendix A contains your units of measure. Within BidBuy, when you're ordering something, it is critically important, and you'll see this as we start working within the system, to select the right units of measure. These are standard units of measure, and maybe a little different than what you're accustomed to using in the past when you've used units of measure, but these are the units of measure for BidBuy, so that's your Appendix A. Your Appendix B is wildly popular. It is a list of all the documents and forms that are likely to be used in a procurement. And when I say likely to be used, it does not mean that every time you do a procurement and you're doing a requisition, you're going to use every form that is on this list. But these are the likely forms. These are the forms more often than not that you may be using when you're doing a procurement. So that is our Appendix B. Most people find it very helpful. It cross-references between the document and the stage in bid buy over to the type of procurement. Am I doing an RFP if I'm doing an IFB? And you can use your Appendix B to say, oh, this is a handy checklist. Do I have the right forms in the right place? So that's your Appendix B. We also have your list, your Appendix C, your custom columns, and your custom columns cover, and it's in the process of being updated, but gives you a good starting point of the custom information we've configured into the system. So very specific state-level information, and if you ever have a question about a specific custom column within BidBuy, your Appendix C is the place to go for that answer. We also have an Appendix D, which is a real short accounting manual, a real quick overview of what you do in the system as it relates to accounting. And then the Appendix E is a new appendix because you can never have too many appendices, but this one most people find very helpful. So in the Appendix E, what we do is cross-reference for you what's going to happen when you take, and who's going to do what in terms of taking a specific action. So we had some confusion, I think, when we first rolled the system out, first went live. You know, who's doing what? When does the agency do it? When does the SPO do it? When does somebody else do it? Who's doing what? And so we put this appendix together as a helpful guide for everyone to understand who does what. And so if you look at that, you'll see at the very first row on the IFB, the agency is going to submit the requisition. The agency will cancel the requisition if they need to cancel it. They can convert it. And if you go all the way across the entire life cycle in BidBuy, and you can see who does what when. There are certain actions that only the SPO should be taking. There are certain actions that the agencies should be taking. So that is your Appendix E. So I just wanted to bring those to your attention before I turn this over to Samantha. And Samantha is going to open up the system and start to show you the general navigation in BidBuy. She's also going to give you some big picture information about resources and information and materials.
What I just want to show, there were a couple of you asking on the phone because you were unable to see what Lori was holding up. And on our trainer support website, if you scroll down on that main page, all the resources that we'll be using are also located on this page. Those are all located under the appendices section. And you can see all of the appendices listed here. Okay. You ready for me?
I'm ready for you.
Okay. Okay. This one's going in. So, like Lori said, I'm going to be going over the general navigation. Some of today's outcomes after this is basically to be able to explain the intent of BidBuy, understand the implementation status, and understand the general org structure of BidBuy, as well as explain the approval paths and approval structures, We'll review and approve a document in BidBuy, and then we'll process and update registration. And it's not showing my presentation, so hang on just a second. All right, there we go. It should be showing on the screen now. Okay. And this is, that's what I was going to say. Why is that under general now? General navigation. Do you have it saved under something else?
Did you just it?
General nav is in here. The general intro. Look for the general intro and see if they're just flip-flop.
Oh, got it off. Being turned to the website. This is like
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now we're good. Some of this information, it looks like, is part of that introduction slide. So you may see a little bit of the same information to reiterate some of the things that we're going to go through today. So we went over today's outcomes, and we'll put that in presentation mode so that you can all see it. So what is BidBuy? Lori went over this in information with you. This is a joint e-procurement initiative with the CMS and CPOGS. And it's a statewide strategic procurement system. I'm just going to skip through a couple of these to make sure that I'm not giving you double the information on here. So this is the implementation plan. This was the vendor registration, like Lori said, went live in 2016. There was a CMS pilot, an agency pilot, and the release off master up to the all agency procurement, which every one of the agencies is now live within BidBuy as of 6/30 of 18. We do have approvals that occur in BidBuy. So if you're within the agency and you are on any kind of approval path, or you are an APO, SPO, anyone who's going to be approved being within the system, this is the kind of information that you'll see. So on one of the tabs, it's called the routing tab, you'll be able to see who all is included in that approval path, where it's at currently, and who it goes to next, when it was sent to those people. That will all show on that approvals tab whenever you get into the system. So it does create that history for you so that you can see all of that at any time. For the approvals, it does create that approval record, like I said, and routes to the appropriate procurement approvers. So the agencies create these approval paths for those internal agency approvals. If you have certain people that are on approval paths that have left your agency, we need to have that deactivation form so that we are made aware and we can put the appropriate people into your approval path. So when you look at those approval paths, if you see anyone that shouldn't be on there because they no longer work with the agency, just let us know at that state user email address so that we can work with that, work with you on those. These will automatically route to the appropriate approval paths. So you have agency approval paths that were set up at the agency level. Your agency has picked those approval paths based by people, and then we have statewide approval paths, so any kind of GOMBI approvals. Your SPO will be on approval paths, your APO. So we do have a lot of different approval paths, so these will automatically route to the appropriate approval paths based on the information that you're listing in the system. It will show all of the actions that are in here, so it's going to show you if they have approved or disapproved it, or if you had the capability to cancel a bid. Please do not use that function when you see that in the system. Basically, it's 3 buttons at the bottom that you'll be able to choose from, and we want to make sure that that cancel bid is not used. So those agency paths are determined by the agency, and then we have those statewide paths. Like I said, if you have something that's coming from DoIT on their master contract, so things of those nature, those will go through appropriate approval paths based on, like I said, the information that you send into the system if they need to go through DoIT approval paths. The approval paths can be based on your document type, so what stage it's at. If it's a requisition, a bid, or a purchase order, it can go through different approval paths for each of those document types. It can also go to a different approval path based on the NIGP code for those line items that you are entering in there, as well as the dollar threshold. So if you have a small purchase threshold, if it's under $10,000, it might go through a different approval path than something that's over $100,000. So depending on how much the total procurement is, it will go through the appropriate approval paths as well. If you have issues with any of those whatsoever, that state user email is here for you, and that's the email address that you would use if you have any issues or if you have any kind of system functionality questions that Lori had spoke about previously. Make sure now that you are the BidBuy trainer, any kind of end users in your agency should be going through you. Then if you don't have the answer, go to the APO. If the APO doesn't have the answer, go through the SPO. Then it would go through the state user support email. So this is that email address for you as a reference. Unclogging. So the general overview of the system. The way that the system is set up, and this is one of the pieces of paper that you have, and it's also included on the trainer support website for those of you that are online under general training materials, and it's called the general overview. And there are a couple different roles basically in the system. It gives you different access and capabilities of what you're able to perform within the system. So the two roles that are used within the agencies most likely are going to be the department access role and the basic purchasing role. So the department access role is the role for agency requesters or end users that gives you the ability to be a requisitioner or contract shopper. So if you are doing any kind of release off master, you would be able to be a DA and complete that release off master contract. You can also create requisitions from scratch, but a contract shopper is able to order from existing blanket contracts only. So within the department access role, there are different access capabilities. Any questions on that? And then within the basic purchasing role, these are basically for the people who are purchasing staff or APOs. This gives you a little bit more capability and functionality within the system, and you can be put as a purchaser within the system to create all documents. So you can do this from requisitions, bids, purchase orders, and any kind of related documents, so amendments, change orders, revisions to those procurements. If you have that basic purchasing role, it's basically a higher access level than the DA user. So a lot of people might think, okay, if this is basic role, it might be the lower level role, but within BidBuy, that's actually the higher level role. And then there's also an approver role. If people are only going through to approve things within the system, they can be configured either as a DA or a BP, which I went over that you can have different access levels within the system based on your role. And if their only role is to approve, they can be set up with that DA role and just approver only right. So they may not be able to order off of that master contract because of that right of being an approver only. The general document structure within BidBuy is listed here. Now, some things won't go from a rec to a bid to a PO, but this is the general structure of the system. Basically, most things that are going through the system will go from a requisition to a bid to a purchase order. So you can see up here that it's giving you an arrow because it's going from a rec to a bid to a purchase order. And the requisition can be an open market, a release, or a demand. The way that you're able to tell the document numbering system at what level it's at in the system is going to be this document numbering right here. And you can see the fiscal year is the way that it starts, and this is an automatic numbering system within BidBuy. So you have the fiscal year right here, the org ID, which is your organization ID, and then the department ID. This should be your agency and department. And then this will tell you at what stage it's at. So you'll see here for the rec, it's at an R. If it's at a bid, it has a B. If it's at a purchase order, it would be at a P. So that's how you can tell what stage the procurement is in based on just seeing the number. And then the last number that's on here is going to be your record number, and that's an auto-generated number within BidBuy. So it will automatically give it a number. Just so that you know, if your rec is number rec 101, that does not mean that it will be bid 101, because there can be, when you created that requisition, a totally different number than where they're at in the bid. So it will be a different number for each stage, and don't expect for it to be rec 101, bid 101, PO 101. Expect that number to be different every single time. Okay. So at a requisition stage, this is documents that agencies, documents that agencies are requesting the goods. So this is your request for goods. This is usually where the agency approval paths are going into the system. any kind of CMS or BOSS, GOMBI approval paths would put it at the requisition stage, but usually an SPO approval path isn't set at the requisition stage usually. The requisition is basically getting rid of the procurement business case or remedy, IGPS, surveys, and the procurement file, because now BidBuy is your procurement file. So these legacy systems that are listed here, what BidBuy is doing is just basically putting in the entire procurement file. Everything's listed in BidBuy in the system. For the bid, that's basically your public procurement bulletin. That's the posting to the public. So anything that's at a bid stage that is published is viewable to the public, and it allows you to publish your request for goods so that vendors can log in, and vendors would be able to enter their quotes at the bid stage, and the BidBuy can help to choose the best quote. It will show you what the best quote is listed on there if you want to award that bid. You can award the bid at this phase and review the bid tabulation in the bid tab, and then you can also convert that bid over to the purchase order or the contract. So the bid stage has a lot of process that it goes through, but all of that is now available in one spot for those vendors. Okay. This is getting rid of the IPB or Illinois Procurement Bulletin for general services, as well as that procurement file. And then at the purchase order stage, it could be a purchase order or a master blanket, and purchase orders can be used for the purchase of goods. So they can be communicating the details straight to the vendor so that they're aware of when the purchase occurs and when it has been approved. Things of that nature would be put into that purchase order. So contract amendments would also be applied at the purchase order stage, as well as change orders.
And Samantha, which one of those actually publishes out to the public?
The bid.
The bid. So when you're looking and thinking about that general workflow with your BidBuy, your requisition, your bid, your purchase order, it is only the bid that will be publishing your solicitation.
Okay. This is a terms crosswalk. With some of you that are new to procurement, you are going to hear some of the procurement code words versus the cloud-based BidBuy words. So this is a really good crosswalk to be able to understand when you're using BidBuy lingo. It might be a little bit different than what you're hearing in the procurement code. So the current information that's listed there, the solicitation or notice is now the bid, that bid stage that's posted to the public. An IPB registered user is now a bidder. An addendum is an amendment in BidBuy. The bid, offer, or response is a quote in BidBuy. The award information is in the bid tab. The contract is the purchase order. And an amendment is a change order. So the ones that I see that get slipped up most often are that amendment, change order, addendum, because an addendum in BidBuy is an amendment, and an amendment is a change order. So this is a really good reference for you to be able to use to make sure as you're learning procurement as well as learning this cloud-based system that you understand kind of how those terms crosswalk work. This is going to show you the general process workflows. When we go through all of our job aids today, our job aids are going to show these same workflows for each of the processes, but this is basically for you to use as a quick reference to be able to see what stages my procurement would go through. If you look on here, like I said, the general overview is going to be that it would go from a rec to a bid to a PO, but not all of them do, and you can see that here. For example, a release against a master contract is going to go straight from a release to a purchase order listed here. And then you also have small purchases that it depends on that small purchase amount, whether or not it would go from a rec to a bid to a PO or just a rec to PO. So these are really good for you to be able to use as a quick reference guide, but also know that at the top of each of the job aids, these workflows are listed for you as well. So what is meant by a document? A document, in general speaking, in bid buy is what describes those different stages, that rec, the bid, and the PO of the solicitation that may go through the process of procuring that good or service. And here are those three types. And within the requisition is type 1. The bid within that is going to have that bid tab, the quotes and amendment, as well as the purchase order, which can also have change orders. So what is a requisition? A requisition is that document that allows those agencies to place the requests for goods or services and record their justification of need, which replaces that PPC. It is a request for an informal quote, if that is if that is the process that is being used, as well as the capability to respond to demand aggregation recs or surveys. And it can be a request to release off a master contract. For bids, the bid is a document that allows the agencies to publish it to out to the public, which again replaces that IPB, and you can publish solicitations, amendments, general notices, accept any vendor quotes, prepare the bid tab, as well as make a vendor award. And what is the purchase order? That purchase order is, again, the document. These are called documents within the system that allows the agencies to purchase those goods or services, serves as a contract vehicle, communicates purchase details to the public or the vendors and to the state, and allows the contract amendments to be applied via change orders. And someone just had the question of which handout am I on, and I am on the just presentations. And if you want to pull up the PowerPoint presentations on your own computer and instead of what I'm showing on my screen, you can pull those up from that trainer support website. Otherwise, it should show everything on my screen that if you are having any troubles, just let me know. The bid by org structure, basically the way that what you need to know is that the system has different orgs that are in the system. If you have access to multiple orgs in the system, some of you do have that access, the SPOs and people with the CPO for General Service will have access to different orgs within the system. And there's going to be a parent org that has the state of Illinois that a lot of our configurations occur within and push down to all of the other orgs that are within the system. And then there are child orgs and agencies, as well as within those child orgs, there are different departments and locations. So the departments and locations are really important for you to know, especially when you're going to register for the system if you don't already have access, to make sure that you have access to all of the appropriate departments and locations within your child org or your agency, okay? And then there are also standalone orgs or agencies that are within the system that basically could have different rights or access into the system. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
The only difference for everyone in training are the SAP agencies that are live are child orgs. The standalone orgs are those agencies that are not yet live with SAP, and really for end users, that's not something that you really need to be, concerned about knowing. But what it does is exactly what Samantha said. It really pushes down those different configurations of what an SAP agency may see and be able to do versus what a non-SAP agency may be able to see.
So just in case those of you on the phone were unable to hear, basically the standalone orgs are going to be your SAP orgs, and the backwards, just kidding. The child orgs are the SAP orgs, and the standalone orgs are non-SAP orgs, and it's basically just the configuration behind the two, the way that they're set up. So in the system, there is going to be this home screen, and I know whenever we get to that train site that most people on any kind of login screen, they just go straight to, scroll down and go straight to the login screen information and don't look at any of the information at the top. But I want to be sure that I'm pointing this out so that you are aware. When you go to log in, there is so much useful information, both to you and to the public on this site. There are, the top of it will show you which environment that you're in, basically. So if you are in the training environment versus the live environment, that's going to tell you that at the very top of it. And then there are some really useful links. So for the vendors, there's vendor training information that's listed on here. There's the pathway to procurement. There's how to register in BidBuy. There's a ton of really good links that are helpful to you as well as to the vendors that are listed on here for reference. So it's really important that if you need any of that information, please use it because they're right there and available for you. There are also password requirements. The vendor help desk information is there. You can see at the very bottom of that screen, the vendor help desk has the phone number and email and their hours of operation. So if you have any vendors that are having any kind of issues getting logged in or registering or just can't figure out how to enter something or where to enter it, that they may need a little bit of help how to use the system, that vendor help desk is there and able to help them with any questions that they have. So that's a really important place that you can send them to whenever they need that help. In that login screen at the very bottom of it, there is the state user login. So you have that login information that you can sign in with your username and password. If you have any issues with your password whatsoever, there's Login Assistant directly under that. So if you go to log in and you forgot your password, just like most things that you sign on to nowadays, you can use that login assistance to be able to help you log into the system. The register and complete registration links that are below that login section are for vendors. So for a vendor to register in the system, that's where they do that information at. This is not for you to register in the system. So we have a separate registration form that we'll show you how to use and everything through this training to these next couple days. But basically that register and complete registration is not for you, it is for that vendor. If you want to view any open bids at any time, you can view it throughout the whole state of Illinois, not just what you need for your agency. If you are going to these links below, you're not logged in whatsoever, so it's basically just what's posted to the public, and that's where you can see the old IPB, this is where that is. So all the open bids, closed solicitations and contracts, those are listed here. So that you would be able to view them, and it has a lot of the same kind of search functionality once you get in the system as what the rest of the system has. This is what the system looks like whenever you log into the system. It's going to show you your org at the top, and for those of you that have access to multiple orgs, if you're having issues trying to view any information, that's going to be the first place that you should check. Am I in the right org to see the appropriate information? And you can change that using those double arrows right next to it. And then your role. So if you have multiple roles, if you have that VP role and the DA role, they'll be listed at the top of the screen for you. But if you have only one role, it'll just be blank. You won't see those tabs at the top. So if you don't see that, don't get frustrated that you don't know what role you're in. You just only have one role access in the system, so you won't see any tabs. But if you do see tabs, you can toggle between the two or whatever, however many that you have, to be able to click on that role for you. So the BidBuy functional flow, as you work through the system, it's kind of like reading a book. You're going to work from left to right, top to bottom, and it all works in a tabular structure, and then you'll scroll all the way down to the bottom to submit or save it on each of the screens. So you can see here where some of those tabs are that are listed on the screen so that you, let me find my mouse here, so that you can see the different tabs that are listed at the top. So you have that header at the top there, and it's got the NIGP code browse. Your account information is listed there, as well as customer service and about. That customer service will send you to the vendor help desk, because it's the same customer service no matter if you're logged in as a state user or a vendor. It'll just try to send an email to that vendor help desk. So that's the header information. If you're ever asked any information, that's where it would be located. The bid by date and time is listed here within that header, and we like to say that's kind of the end-all be-all time. So that's what you should be time stamping everything with that you receive in paper, because you could still receive any kind of paper quote, and it needs to be that same date and time as bid by to make sure that we're being fair to all of the quotes that are received, that they are received in the appropriate time. And it shouldn't be the clock on the wall or the clock on a computer or watch or something of that nature, just to make sure that we do have that same clock for all of the documents. And then you'll also see there are icons on this side of the header, and these icons, when you hover over them in the system, it's going to show you what they are. It'll say this is advanced search or help, and we'll get into, I'll show you what all of these are when you get into the system. And then we have the navigation ribbon. The navigation ribbon is basically drop-down menus that are available to you, as well as the quick buy feature, which we'll go over when we get into Release Off Master, and then it'll show you who is logged in at the time. These are the different tabs, or your control center that's going to show for you, and it'll show based on your department or your access level, and whether documents can be viewed or whichever sub-tab that's listed in here. So you have tabs as well as sub-tabs in the system, and you can see I want to see all of the requisitions in progress, and that's what will show at the bottom. So clicking those different sub-tabs can give you different information as well.
Also, these sub-tabs are the most frequently used. The software is set up, with those, most frequently used sub-tabs. Up at the top, where Samantha pointed out the ribbon where it says, documents, vendors, and their drop-down. If you click on a document, highlight recs, and it will show you all statuses for those requisitions. So the sub-tab is most frequently used. We'll drop down up the document.
Thank you, Amy. In the system, if you are in any kind of requisition, bid, or PO, it's going to show you the current status of that document, so that you can see, is it in progress, has it been approved, has it been returned because it was disapproved. Those statuses are also listed on the trainer support website. If you have a question of what a status means, it will be listed in there. You can review the full information on that, but that's where that status is going to be for you. So 3 tips to troubleshoot in BidBuy is check your org. Make sure that you're in the appropriate org if you have access to the multiple orgs. Also check your role. If you have access just to your org, but you're thinking that you should have access to something, you're trying to do something in the system and it's just not showing for you, you might be in the inappropriate role. So that role at the top, if you have toggled to a DA user and you're trying to do something that only a BP user has access capability to do, you just toggle over to the basic purchasing role so that you can complete what you need to complete, also vice versa. And then again, the way the system works, we say check your second step. So there are several actions in BidBuy that they call it the Texas two-step, that basically you need to save it, do what you're going to do, and save it again. So just try to make sure that you're checking that second Texas two-step, that you are checking that second step to make sure that you've saved it to move on to the next tab. Okay? So what we'll do is have you go ahead and log into your computers, and we will have you log into the train environment. So get logged into your computer and you will pull up Google Chrome is the preferred browser to be used with BidBuy. Please let me know if your computers do not have Google Chrome.
So, and your login information,
yes,
is there on a little card on the bottom of your monitor? Login is case sensitive?
We don't have Chrome.
No Chrome, then do IE. Or is Windows Edge on there?
Yeah, Windows Edge.
Windows Edge, use that.
Yeah, I don't have Chrome. My login information on the monitor is not working.
Okay.
Anyone who's having any problems?
And those of you that are on the WebEx, if you have received your training login from me, you should be using that training and those of you in the classroom, the training login information is what you should be using to get into the train environment of BidBuy.
We can't get into the computer. Yeah, I'm having trouble.
Is there anyone that's logged in and happy with their login? Hands off if you're happy. No one. Okay, so this is working. Oh, what?
I'm going to see if I can find somebody, Lori.
We did hear that these computers are very slow, so all of the communication to it, but it seems that it's working, but it's all otherwise.
And then figure out orders, you know, all the time.
How do I know this?
Yeah.
And if you want to go to train,
It's not online. I tried using local. And I had no luck.
maybe it needs to be rebooted. From this one back there.
That's 203. Yeah, let me try this. This one I know works. Go over here.
Her wrote it for me, but I tried that password. I tried that password.
Locked too, I think.
Yeah. And that, those three are all locked. This one is not locked.
Oh, wait.
Mine always does it. I'm hard to put. I'm an infant. I'm not on the
For those of you that are saying that it's completely locked, try to shut your computer all the way down and then turn it back on. And then they have someone that they're contacting to see if they can help as well.
The page loads.
Your training login? Did I email you one?
Whatever.
All right.
It takes like 2 minutes.
It's done, it's locked in and ID. So with your system, did you log in with that? There you go.
I just can't get on. No, like I've got logged in fine. I just don't have an internet connection.
At the bottom right,
So people are finding it looks much faster and tighter.
Tiny.
or you can just type in internet connection. And then the ID is going a little bit faster.
If anybody else needs a training credential, password, username, please let me know.
It's not doing anything.
Type in, let's just not type in anything, let's go back to the Windows. All right, scroll down. Oh,
This was locked before, right?
go to settings. Yeah. Okay, now, go available now.
Okay, go ahead and turn it on.
And then the what, okay, so that's fine, and then all of a sudden now it's not fine. I'll see if I get them. I don't know, one of their network guys.
I don't know. Yeah.
Let me see if I can get the network guy for this.
I had that.
Are they not connected to Wi-Fi? And it seems like I'm not to connect all Wi-Fi. No, they're not done it here. So if you're having trouble with your connection, it seems to be Wi-Fi connection, not a network. So if you're having trouble with your internet connection and it's saying, you know, you're not connected, go to your network settings and select the BCSS. And it may take a minute, but that seems to be the one that should be what you're saying.
Okay, so those of you that are on the phone, the email that I sent out requesting if you needed a training log on, you received, and you said, yes, I need a training log on. I have emailed you that training login username and password, so please look up that password to be able to use in the train environment. I see a couple of you requesting a login now. Are you in email, Lori, or are you in?
Yours should.
Building on Wi-Fi.
If you're unable to get in through Chrome, you can view it in Internet Explorer, but the preferred method is Chrome if you have Chrome within your agency.
Oh, that's fine. That's just for interest. Okay.
Give me just a second. For those of you that are saying that you don't have training login, I need to go through these training logins and be able to email those to you if they were not previously requested.
Yeah. Okay, let's just give it a minute, because it may be trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, you might have to see it. So if you go to...
The training password, for those of you, if you do have that, is a capital T with the @ S, lowercase SSWORD01. It will prompt you when you get logged into the system to change your password. Make sure that you write down what that new password is, because you will use these training credentials for the remainder of the training in BidFi. Hang on just a second.
And all the things here.
Okay, so if you have used the credentials that I sent over to you previously, for those of you on the phone, if you have used those credentials and changed your password again, it should give you the password that you changed it to. So once you change your password, that is your password. So you will continue to use that same password. So please be sure to write it down. If you logged in and changed your password and have now forgot your password, you will need new training login credentials. So please let me know that, and I will send that over to you. But again, please, when you get into the system and it asks for you to change your password, please be sure to write down your password, because you will be using these, and I only have enough for one for each of you. So if you lose that password, we will need to work with our central office to get more login credentials. So please write down your password when you change your password. Are you guys able to log in now at the computers that you were unable to log in at?
Yeah, I'm logged out.
Can you, oh, he's not here.
Whatever. I was surprised. That's connecting, but it ain't
Your login information was that you changed password for you.
Yeah.
When we, as administrators, configure the password and the first month, the first time it's logged on. I think we're trying to, yeah. They have a call into the network person that works.
Was that mobile?
That was, yeah.
Okay. So this one has stopped. I don't know if it's going to work. Right. We're looking to see if
in the interest of time, as soon as we have the returns, we make it see on and have to view it. Yeah, or Bill, if those of you who do it in the rest, are lucky to send it.
We hope. They had to give me a ticket number and ask a bunch of questions and said he's sending it over client services and hoping somebody will just be able to walk over and help. So we should know soon.
So what I would suggest is that we can move forward as we wait to get their log.
Okay. And Carrie, I see your comment on our chat feature. If you could give me your last name so that I can send over that training login information for you, that would be extremely helpful for me. Thank you.
But we're going to go ahead while we're waiting for tech support. We've got a ticket in with EPFS on the tech support. And go ahead and we're going to go through this. You're going to be fine. All of this is being recorded. So when you get back to your desk, within usually about 24 hours, the recording is available. So if you want to sit at your desk and do it, you'll be able to listen to everything. But that way we won't get too far behind today.
Do you want to email all these individuals login credentials, or do you want me to?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Do you want to start on this one?
Sure.
And for those of you on the phone that requested a training login, I'm sending it over to you now.
Okay, so for those of you who are getting your first-time login steps, every time you log in, they ask you to change your password. As Samantha said, write it down. We'll go back for those of you who are here in the room who weren't able to get through it, but you enter in that current password, which I have written down up there. You create your new password, you confirm your new password, and you click submit. So in terms of first-time login steps and my account maintenance, the good news is once you've logged in, just like every single other thing you do on the internet, you're able to go into your own account and you can change the email to your correct email. If it's not correct, you can select your own login question, as well as enter your login answer, entering your current password, the one you just changed it to, and click save and exit. This is a really good time, I think, to talk about the risk associated with this system. So this cloud-based system had to go through stringent DO-IT security analysis to ensure that things being ordered within the system would be secure, that we're not going to be subject to lots of hackers and attacking as it relates to our procurement. So when you go into the first time and you log in and you create your login question and your login answer, also think about the fact that every time you walk away from your desk, if you leave the system open, it is subject to potentially someone sitting down, and if they're able to get it through without approval pass, or depending on what their agency approvals are, maybe order 1,000 penguins to be delivered to your desk. So my guess is is that you do not want 1,000 penguins potentially sent to your desk, but really do think about how you use the system when you're logged into the system and when you walk away from your desk that you are logged out. It also circles us back to what Samantha was talking about a little bit earlier about registration forms, which we're going to go through in greater detail at the very end of this session on Thursday, but making sure that when you are having people leave your agency or change positions within your agency, that they are being quickly and timely deactivated from the system. Not only do you expose the safety procurement system to risk if someone who shouldn't be in the system, who shouldn't be authorized anymore, does have access to the system, you would also expose your agency to audit risk if, you know, people that shouldn't be authorized who've left the agency still have login credentials. This is cloud-based. In theory, you can go to a DCF training room and you can log in from there and get right in the system and start doing things. So it's just a really good time to talk about risk associated with the system and assuring correct authorizations and logins. Okay, so now for those of you who are logged in, and I know not all of us are, it's just a good time. Let me see this up here in Chrome. Let me get us logged in.
Yes, for those of you that are having the technical difficulties on the computers, we have someone coming over to help with this, but it may take a few minutes for them to get over. So if you just follow along on the computer with us, and we appreciate your patience through all of these technical difficulties.
Okay. So if you are logged into the system, I don't know how to get it. That's why I don't use two screens ever. So as Samantha showed you in the screenshot, what you should be able to see here is this is someone who has login rights, who has the ability to be in the basic purchasing role. And you'll see if I switch over to the department access role, that access role goes dark. And if I'm in my department access role, when I'm working in that role, I'm going to be limited to what a department access user can do, which is, in a very general descriptive way, is create requisitions. So that's your lowest level. Basic purchasing, not logical, we call it basic, but it's the higher level, is where you have more rights and more authority. Most everyone in this room will not have a vendor administrator or internal administrator. Those are rights that are reserved either to the vendor who's registered within the system or to our central office that is in charge of bid buy. So you'll either see basic purchasing and department access. As she explained, you can click around in here. If you have access to multiple orgs, likely you will not, you can look at that. But go ahead and start clicking on the various tabs that Samantha discussed so you can get a feel for the system. Up here, these are really basically resources. Down here is where all the procurement activity happens. So go ahead and poke around if you have access. For those of you who don't, I'll just show you news, our latest news. If we post any general news, that's where it will pop up. We're not big procurement news people, so we don't, we're not sending you out news every day. We're not spamming you with news. I'm right now in the Central Management Services org, and I've clicked now on the Recs tab. How are my requisitions doing? What's available to me? And I see that I have one that's in progress. That's this one down here. You'll see that little number right next to each of them. I have none that are ready for approval, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't have any that are ready for purchasing that are in that stage or returned or gone to PO. So right now I don't have to really worry about any of that because I just have this one here. Same thing, same structure. If I go over and look at the bids, here's the sub-tab, and you'll see there are 41 bids in this particular case in our training environment that are ready to be opened. So I would have access to that and I could take those actions. And then the same thing as you move across. You've got your purchase order tab. That are loading. Let me try it again, if I get it to go there. I really do apologize for the Wi-Fi in this room. And hopefully the ticket that we have out. Here's purchase orders. These are POs and ready to send status. These are documents pending my approval. So this is basically my dashboard of activities that I need to take care of. One of the things to really understand about bid buy is bid buy ends at procurement. So it goes all the way from that initial identification of need at the agency. The agency then creates a requisition to get its approvals. After the requisition, it's going to create a bid, if a bid's necessary in the particular type of procurement, to go out and do a solicitation. It's ultimately going to get converted over to a purchase order, and then it's going to, if based on the agency's interface with the ERP system, if an agency is live in ERP or SAP, it may then connect over there to send over some data about the contract. But bid buy ends at procurement. So bid buy is not a fiscal system. It isn't doing invoicing, we're not doing inventory, we're not doing receiving, we're not doing any of that. But let me caution you, and for those that I hit my back to, I apologize. That doesn't mean that your fiscal office is not going to be involved in bid buy. So based on your particular agency's status, your fiscal office should be very involved and understand what's occurring. And we even encourage, and we'll talk more about this later, that you have your fiscal office, strongly encourage that you have your fiscal office on your approval tab so that your fiscal office is connected to what you're doing in procurement and can then carry out the actions that your fiscal office needs to do. But for our purposes here today and what we're learning about, the best thing to do is to think that once we get to all of those stages of a procurement and bid buy and it's approved and it's sent off to the vendor, bid buy is done other than the fact that it remains the procurement file. And it also houses, it's the warehouse of our contract. So it's a place for you to go and find contracts. But the fiscal, all the fiscal actions occur outside of bid buy. Beth, are you able to jump in, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I had a bunch of emails as well.
Okay. So, there we go. So we just went through, we took a look at everything that we were supposed to kind of see in terms of what the layout is, what the look and feel is. And now there's a discussion about why do we need approvals? Does anybody want to share why we might have the approvals in the bid buy system? So at your agency, you have rules, right? And there is also the procurement code that says, you know, approvals must occur. And other statewide agencies such as CMS, such as GOMBI, such as BEP, such as DO-IT, also are required and have rules as it relates to approving procurements at certain parts of the path. So the important thing to know is that the approvals that are established within BidBuy are established to create that path and to date and timestamp every approval. So as a procurement in BidBuy, whether it's the requisition, the bid, the purchase order, the award, all of that process is going to go through a predetermined approval path. The vast majority of the approval path within BidBuy is established by the agency. So each agency will come in and they work with us and they identify how they want their approval paths to work. Good? Okay. And I'm going to turn back over to Samantha. But that's the key thing to know is that approval paths are established at the agency level with the exception of the statewide. So GAMBI establishes its level, and the SPS establishes their level, and the CMS establishes their level. But all your agency approvals are established by your agency. And if you're having a problem with them, your agency can reach out. If you're looking at it and saying, you know, this approval path doesn't make any sense, you can reach out to us and work with us, and we will work to reestablish your approval path as your agency wants those paths to be.
Can I just double check with those that are on the phone that you are able to see the PowerPoint again? Could you please put in the chat feature if you're able to see the PowerPoint? Okay, we had a few that came through that had said they were unable to see the screen, but it looks like you are able to see it now, so I appreciate it. Thanks for that feedback, guys. If you did not receive any of the, if for any reason I missed you on the training login, please send it through that chat feature or email me, Samantha Kelton, so that I can get that information over to you. All that I saw, I have sent over those training logins, and I will put in, if you already have that username, but you need to have the password, I just sent it in the chat feature so that you have that password, and then it will prompt you to change that password. So anybody else that does not have a username, please let me know for the training login. Okay. So back to our regularly scheduled information. What are you approving? So all the same items as you did before, you're just using BidBuy. So basically anything that you are doing through that paper process, you are now using BidBuy for all of those established approval paths. And then you have those agency approvers as well as the statewide approvers that we went over previously. And then I actually am going to have Lori go over this information. I think she does an excellent job at explaining these different document level and sequence approvals so that you can make sure that you get the best trainer for this.
Well, good luck with that. Okay, can I see a show of hands as to those of you who are in this room who work regularly in BidBuy and really you're like, I get it. I understand how approvals work in BidBuy. Got 2 of you. Good. Do either of you want to teach us now? When we establish within BidBuy, you know, it's a straight-up database system, works the way all the other IT stuff works. It's really logical, and the logical IT people are the ones that, you know, establish this for us. But essentially, some people describe this sort of like a hotel. So imagine that our approval path is a hotel, and our hotel has 3 stories. Here's the first floor of our hotel. Here's the second floor of the hotel. Here's the 3rd floor of the hotel. And imagine that you have a fire, right? And the fireman wants to come in and make sure that they thoroughly check every single room in the hotel, and they do it in an orderly way, right? They don't just randomly run all over the hotel. But someone's going to start here on the 1st floor, and they're going to knock on the 1st door. They're going to say, hey, is there a fire in here? The person on the 1st floor in the 1st room, room 1, says, nope, we're clear. So then the fireman comes over on the 1st floor to the 2nd room, room number 2. Does the same thing, knocks here, and says, are you all clear? And so forth. So when approvals are established back at your agency, think of the levels that you're being asked to incorporate in your approval paths as the levels, the floors of a hotel. So in general, a good example of that is you may want to establish an approval path that says, up to $10,000 for our level 1 approval. All we want is one supervisor approval. We've got one supervisor that's assigned. It's for all the procurements. And so the only thing that we're going to have in our approval hotel is one floor, one room. And then once that approval is done, it's going to go off to any site-wide approvals that may need to go through, whether it's CMS or GAMI or anywhere else that needs to go. But for my agency purposes, I just have one floor. I have one room that it has to stop at. However, now we're at a $50 million procurement, and you're going to say to me, oh, yeah, no, so we start with that first supervisor, or maybe we skip that supervisor altogether. When we have $50 million procurements, it immediately goes to, our first deputy, and then our second deputy, and then our third deputy, and our fourth deputy. We've got 4 deputies that look at a $50 million procurement. But we all kind of want them to look at it first before anyone else looks at it. And so if you have several people who all need to look at it sort of at the same time, sort of in that same level, you can establish them all on this first level. And then the next thing is then we send it off to our APO and our CFO, and we have other people in the agency. But we need all these approvals first. So we're going to put our second level of approvals at the second level up here, and we can establish them at a sequence. You could actually put, if you wanted your CFO and APO to look at it at the same time, you could put them up here in this second level, and you could even put them at the same sequence number so they sort of get it at the same time, but they still both have to approve it. They both have to look at it. They might be here at the same sequence. But you then may have, the senior deputies are up here after the APO and, who did I say, the APO and the CFO, you might have your senior deputies up here. They're going to look at it. And then ultimately, of course, the executive director on that procurement is going to be an approver. So that's basically how the approval structure works. Pick a floor, pick a sequence on the floor, and then move up to the next floor and put them in sequence. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any questions about that? Anybody have any stories back to your agency about having problems with their approval path? Missing an approval or not missing an approval? Do we see anything, Samantha, from our chat folks?
Just training login so far.
Okay. Good. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And the most important thing to know is you don't really have to understand that, but you do need to work with state user. If you have any issues at your agency, you need to put them in a different order. You want to restructure them. You need to take some people out. You need to add them. And the other thing to know about this is you can not only do it based on dollar thresholds, but you can also do it based on NAGP codes, so you can structure how your paths are set up. And when in doubt, contact state user. Good.
Thank you, Lori. Next up, we have our approval actions, so the document summary tab. That's going to give you the information of where those approval actions are on here. If you're the approver, primary approver, alternate approver, which it would be your setup as an alternate approver all the time. If an approver has an alternate, they're alternate, like I said, they're all the time. You'll receive notifications at the same time that the other approver, alternate approver does on the system, and you're equal to that primary approver. And then there is a proxy approver, which is temporary. So if you are on an approval path and you go on vacation, you win the lottery, please set up your proxy before you go. And that proxy, I know when you win the lottery, that's going to be the first thing that you think of, like, I need to set my proxy on this approval path before I go. But make sure you set up that proxy so that you can designate while you're out of the office that that person can do the approvals and that it doesn't hold up any kind of procurement. If in an emergency situation, if you are I hate to say it, but a car accident or something like that that you don't know that is going to happen, we can set that proxy for you, but it is very few and far between that we see that in our office, because the expectation is that it lies with you to set that proxy if you go out of the office. Okay. So how will you be notified if something needs your approval? You'll receive an email. The system will have it in there that something needs your approval. The email will be sent to you from this il.bidby address, and it'll say basically, here's the document number, and it'll give you a link. In that link, it's going to take you to the sign-on page, because you have to sign on. You can't go directly to the document. So you do need to sign on, and then you can use that email that has the document number and look up that document number once you're in the system to go through the approval process after you review it, make sure that everything's good to go. You can also go to that approvals tab on the home screen here to be able to view anything that's needing your approval, and what approval actions can you take. You can approve it. The capability to approve after you've reviewed everything in the system. I can't talk today. I feel like Elmer Fudd, sorry. But everything in the system, you will just basically click the approval button whenever you have gone through the system to verify that all of the information is appropriate, and then it will then notify the subsequent approver if you have another approver after you. If there are no additional approvers, then the document will change the status to allow for further processing. So if it needs to be converted to the next document stage, it will show that information in the system. You can also disapprove a document. If something needs more information or something was missing or whatever it might be, it might get disapproved on the approval path with some kind of comment or note stating why it was disapproved. When you look at the system, it will be in a returned status, and you don't have to clone it or recreate this all from scratch. You just reopen that bid to make those edits to, or whatever the PO, whatever document stage it's at. If it was disapproved, you can change what needs to be changed in the system. So you have the capability to approve, disapprove, or cancel, which again, don't use the cancel feature that's in the system. It is cloud-based, and that's a feature from the cloud-based system, but not used by the state. So you'll go in and access the document that has been approved, click on the hyperlink to enter the document for approval. And then when that document opens, you'll go to the summary tab. You'll review each of those tabs to verify that the appropriate information is listed, all of the appropriate forms are attached, everything that you need within that procurement is appropriate for you to approve, and then you can approve it. So basically, we want to kind of walk through what the approval process is in the system. And what you'll see are the approval actions here. So you'll see where that on the system, it looks like order sequence 1, like Lori was talking about, where the order sequence is based on the levels that are in the system. These are going to be your automatically populated approval paths. And then if you have someone that you want to add onto the approval path, let's say that for some reason you don't see Bob on the approval path and Bob needs to be on the approval path, you can put what order sequence you want them to be. So here it could be number 2, and then put Bob in the system and add them to that approval path. If you do need to have someone, if it's a special procurement that needs an extra approver, or if someone else needs to see it, you can go through and add them onto the approval path as well. Okay. You can see the approver name, if they have an alternate approver, the date that it was sent to them, requested for their approval, as well as it will say whether or not, if you have multiple approvers that are on here, it would say if they have approved it and it's gone to the next person as well. So down here you can see it automatically goes to approve, but you can put in any comments whether you approve or disapprove into the system, and then you can save and exit. When you save and exit, that's when it sends the notification to the next person in line for the approval path. So once that approval action is complete, all of the approvers have gone through the system and approved all of the documents, that's when it'll say that basically it can be converted to the next path. So you can see here, this gives a little bit better picture of, well, if you can use your magnifying glass from where you're at. But this is a little bit small for you, I apologize, but basically it's showing you the different approval paths, the different priority sequences. It's showing all of the different approvers on there. Go ahead, Lori, are you?
Yeah, so in terms of the level, this is the floor. So all of these approvers right here are on the first floor. That's your level. And that's if they're next to each other. But the path priority sequence, so this one being number 1 is going to approve first, number 10, number 15, number 20, number 25, and number 30, and then number 60. So they're all of that is going to occur first. It's going to go through that whole path. And then on this one is over here on the 30th floor. And their path sequence 70. So when your agency's approval paths are set up, this is what the system, when BitBuy goes out to say, well, what path should this be on? This is doing it in real time. So it's taking a look at all the information that has been input into a BitBuy procurement. What's the dollar threshold? What's the NIGP code? Who's the buyer? What agency is this? And the system itself will go out and take all those points of data and connect it to every approver that needs to be to apply, that applies to that particular set of criteria. So the point of saying that is this is not always going to be your approval path. This just happens to be the way this approval path was structured based on the criteria that you entered into your procurement. That make sense?
This is what it will look at like a little bit closer of the screen whenever you have some approvals that are in process. So you can see listed on here what the document number is, the requisition date, this one in particular is the requisition, what the description is, that'll be your short description on there, so that's something that you have typed in there, the type of requisition it is, and then that approval, when it was requested exactly down to the second, as well as who the approver is and what the status is. So on this one, you've got that you are waiting on legal and Craig for this, but it has been approved at the other approval methods. You can see the date that it was approved listed on there, so you can see the current status of any approvals that are in progress. So here's what I want you to do, those of you that are able to log in. I want you to log into BidBuy and click on the Approvals tab and approve a document, then log out. Okay, so I'm going to go through that on my screen just so that you can kind of walk along with me and make sure that you're able to do it. So go ahead, if you aren't already logged in and you have that capability to log in, get in there. Go to, if you have been playing around in the system a little bit, you may not be on the home screen any longer, so click your home button. When in doubt, go home, which is going to be located, all right, just making sure you can see me. Click home right here. There we go, that made it a little larger. You can use that home feature there, and then the tab should be listed here that says approval. Click any of the documents that are in the system.
So, yeah, I think it's full demo.
Okay. Just kidding. Now you know where the approvals tab is. Yeah, all right. So you'll go to the approvals tab. I clicked on the document, and you would go through this information to verify that it has all of the appropriate information that should be within the document. Scroll down to the bottom of the summary tab. You can see here who that approver is, all of that information that's in the approval path. and then I would click approve. And if you want any notes listed in the system, you would just list any notes. And then save and exit. I'm going to verify my rec number 6045 because sometimes it pops out of the document.
One of the things with the system is it typically will always ask you, are you sure? Are you sure you want to approve? Are you sure you want to cancel the bid? So read those pop-up messages. I know we get in the habit of kind of flipping through really quickly. We think we clicked something, but, you know, it was an error. Now, after we put that OK message, you know, the document has already moved on. So it's your second, you know, insurance that you have taken the right action. So read those messages. Make sure you are doing what you really want to do before you just click OK.
Thank you, Amy. So now that I've approved that document, it is showing that it has been approved. All of the approval actions are complete, and now it's giving that button that's available to convert that to a bid. So you are able to see that within the system. Something else, since that gave me an error that this page can't be reached, another way that you can navigate through the system is that you can click that back button to get to the last page that you were at. Just know that that back button is not an undo button. So if you have done something that you're trying to undo, you do need to get into the system and correct that. But if you forgot what that requisition number is or whatever, you want to go back to that last page, you are able to use that back button within the browser to go through those different pages as well. So back to our PowerPoint. I want to go through our trainer support website and the resources. So this is the website listed here for those of you that are on the phone. If you want to type that into your browser, you can type that into the browser, or you can copy it. You should be able to copy it. What I'll do is copy it and put it into the chat feature, if it will let me copy here. Wait for it. We exit out of that. There it is. Okay, here is our trainer support website. I just want to show you, if you don't have this bookmarked or if you're trying to look something up, if you Google CPO-GS, I might regret this with how slow these computers are going. You should be able, it'll come up as one of the first choices to go to General Services, Illinois.gov, and that will bring you over to our Bid By Trainer Support website. You can see there it's listed as Bid By. It'll take us to our website. So if you aren't able to copy and paste this, you can also just go to Google and Google the CPO-GS website. And I put that into the chat feature. Okay, I just copied and pasted it into the chat feature as well. So if you want to copy and paste that, you can also do that. Basically, now that you are a trainer, all of these resources are available to you that you can view on the website at any time. And I highly recommend going to this site. If you have questions of what's the process or how do I do things within the system, all of that information is available to you at your fingertips at any time. When you get into the system, the way that this works is that any of these pictures that are listed at the top are links that you can click on to get to different sections on the website. We record all of our training within the system. There it goes. I just saw that link finally go through our chat feature. Everything that we do, our trainer support website or webinar, as well as training that's held on, we call Training Tuesdays, Those are all available and recorded on our video library. So if you're trying to look up a topic and you want to know if there's training that's already been conducted, you can review our video library and you can search based on the filters that are listed at the top. Wait for it. And be able to review any of those videos that are online. This shows our end user support process that's listed on our website to, again, reiterate our support process so that the users within the agencies can have the best available answers to them that are agency-specific answers. This library is going to show you here, there are Train the Trainer. So our last videos of Train the Trainer are available, listed here. And it was kind of in a different function than, or a different format than we have for this. So once we have these conducted, we are recording this and we will post this available out on the trainer support webinar website, as well as end user training that we have conducted, monthly agency webinars that were conducted, as well as our Train the Trainer support website or webinars. So this is the one that I said that you can, this is automatically sorted in alphabetical order. You can use these drop-down menus to do a little bit easier search on these and try to find the topic that you might be looking for that training. And you can view the webinar recording at any time. And then down here, if you are an ERP SAP agency, the information is listed here to give you a notice that some of our training materials might be updated based on these processes as we go through our SAP training. And there are training materials as well as training videos that are SAP and bid by relation training materials. So I know that ERP has a separate site for their specific training information, and these links will take you to the bid by ERP specific training information. One that since this is taking so long to get to these links, I won't click on it, but I will tell you that out on this ERP training materials, the document that's listed out there, the error message report, is something to that nature. If you're receiving error messages that are SAP ERP error messages, it's a really great document because it will say, here's the error that you're getting, this is how you fix it, basically. So use that document, get in there, make sure that you're using that document to be able to reference and use for you as you go through any kind of SAP errors in the system. And then each of these sections, whenever you click this plus sign, it will give you all of the training materials. So you, as the trainer for your agency, after you go through our training, you should be able to use these instructor guides, the examples. This information will be listed for you. For those of you that are on the phone, this is where those examples are listed as we go through our training, job aids, the presentations that we go over in the training today, process manuals. All of these are really, really excellent references for you to be able to use. And I highly recommend not printing them off and using what is listed on the website. You can see that there are versions of this. So as we update our training materials based on those SAP requirements, then those version numbers will update and change. And even if you are not an SAP agency, it is best to use the most up-to-date version that's listed on this website. So try to use the electronic versions, and these are really great resources to you as the new agency trainers as you go through and you are training your agencies on BidBuy. Are there any questions?
Yeah, and we're going to go through all of that in great detail at the end. I think it'll make a lot of sense, and we'll make sure that you have all the information that you need as it relates to resources when you leave here. So where to find a job aid, where to find a manual, where to find all of that. But it's a tremendous resource to you. So I think what we're going to do next is we're going to go to lunch a little bit early, probably right around 11:30. And hopefully while you're gone, the ticket that we've put in to get this computer lab straightened out, with any luck, will be resolved. But what I want to do right before we leave to sort of finish off the general navigation is to go through and show you the Quick Buy feature. We're going to just take a really quick brief look at it. Normally I would have you practice it, but since we have much of the room that doesn't have access, for those of you who do have access, if you wish to practice it, you can. But this is really going to take you in and give you a look at specifically, we've kind of shown you the structure and the organization and where things are located, but this is now going to take you in specifically so that you can look at what some of this all means within BidBuy. So as Samantha said, our phrase is, when you're in doubt, if you're lost in BidBuy, always go home. Going home should actually take you home, and we'll wait for it. But if I'm sitting here and I have someone within my agency and they need a fire extinguisher, we love talking in our training about fire extinguishers, and you know, it's a simple purchase, but I want to do it in BidBuy. The threshold requirements for doing a release off of a master within BidBuy, if you're buying something off a master contract, all releases off master occur within BidBuy. So if you're going to do something and you say, I know there has to be some sort of a master contract out there for me to go ahead and do a procurement within BidBuy, and I'm going to show you this process, and when we get back from lunch, Amy's going to take you into our new process. But I'm doing this just to get you familiar with how certain things work. You can come up here to the Quick Buy area of the screen. That is showing, good. And type in fire. And now, as a rule of thumb, do I want to type in my search box that I would like a black fire extinguisher with a silver handle and a blue label? Is that how the best way it is generally to go about searching for something? No. Less is more. When you're doing a search in BidBuy, just like when you're doing a search generally out on the internet, if you put in too much information, you don't get many results. So I'm just going to type in the word fire, the least amount of information I can possibly put into my search, and see if I come up with any results. When you're at your desk, this happens like this. It's like blazes. And look, awesome. It's given me a bunch of options. So I can get some training on fire extinguishers, training fire extinguishers. I have a change order here, some line items on a master contract called a change order to increase the quantity. I probably don't want that. Here's a line item for fire extinguishers. Here's a line item for fire extinguisher maintenance off of a master contract. There's some more fire extinguishers. Oh, these fire extinguishers are $160. Do I want the one that's $160? Or do I want this fire extinguisher down here that's $100? Well, let's see what else I can find out about it. So I come out and I look, and I see, oh, they're both, you know, supplied by the same vendor. I look and see who the vendor is. Train vendor one, I know this is going to be a small purchase, just a quick buy. I can pick the vendor I particularly want and purchase it off of this master contract. And I'm going to look at all of the information. It allows a direct release. That's great. A direct release, meaning I can just go and directly release this off this master. And I'm going to say, you know, I don't really see anything different. I'm pretty sure the one that I want, you know, is the fire extinguisher that's $100. That was what I was expecting. And I can put in the quantity. I'm going to also, check it, and put in the quantity. And so I want to actually get 10 of those fire extinguishers. And now I'm going to add it to a new requisition and exit. So now I am here. I am on a release requisition. And as Samantha told you this morning, there is a number assigned to this release requisition. And it's a SMART number. So it's a random number, but it's SMART. So the numbering system within BidBuy, 19 stands for the fiscal year. It's fiscal year 19, right? This is the agency that I work for. So this should be the agency I work for. This is a weird combination, but this is the location that I work in. And so you heard earlier this morning that when you're in bid buy and you have rights within the system, you get rights to an agency, but you may also have rights to all of the locations and departments within the agency, and you can do everything, or you may be limited. You only work in the administrative office, and within the administrative office, you only work in the, downtown Chicago administrative office. So this tells me my department and location. This R here tells me that I am doing a requisition. And the last 4 digits are just the randomly generated number. So in our training environment, in our CMS org, for requisitions, this is the 7,727th requisition that we have done. I look down here at my requisition, and I see that my requisition has a bunch of tabs in it again. As Samantha said, within bid buy, we work left to right, top to bottom. So I am going to go out. I see I've got my line item there, and I am going to start filling in and completing my general tab. Bid buy works like everything else on the internet. If there is an asterisk, it means it's a required field. So the fields are going to have to fill out. So I see my rec number, the status is in progress as I'm working from the left down. I'm going to go out here. For whatever reason, it's not letting me select the department. Gave me a location. I can put in a required by date, but there's no asterisk. It's not a required field, so I can or can choose not to do that. In my types, I am going to be asked to identify what type of requisition I am doing. Basically, there are 2 types of requisition. One is to do a release off of a master contract. The other is to do an open market requisition. I would be choosing open market if I was going to go out and solicit to the open market. But in this particular case, I found a master contract with fire extinguishers on it, on that master, so all I'm going to do is release off of that master. When I come on down here, if I have an agency reference number that I want to use for that release, in my agency, we use a ticket number or an order number, whatever kind of number I want to use at my agency, I can do that. In the special procurement type, if there was a special procurement type associated with that, if I was maybe doing a sole source or an emergency, I would choose that. Where did my type go? Oh, there it is. Okay. But in this case, I don't have one. It's not a required field. We can go through some of these other fields, but I'm really going to look at this release requisition, and I am going to add those items that are required. I will come over here to my type code, and now on this particular release requisition, I am identifying how this procurement was originally procured. Now, the way I can find that out, specifically, I'm going to actually put in here that it was competitive sealed bidding, but the way that you can identify how it was originally procured, if you want to confirm how it was originally procured, is you can come out here to your items tab where your master blanket for your fire extinguishers is listed, and there is a link there that would take you and allow you to look at that purchase order. I look at that purchase order and I can see it was a competitively sealed bid purchase order when it was initially done. Yeah?
The type codes are interesting also. I'm sure that's still covered, but the type codes are different from rec bid POs, except on a release requisition, the type code is the same as that master, the options for them. So that way, like with what Lori was saying, you can select the master blanket was procured through bidding. Now my release requisition also matches that. On a typical open market requisition, those type codes are, if you're familiar with CDC, are what was listed in the CDC. So it's kind of an identifier for that portfolio type. So the release see some differences. Well, this is a release rec, but when I did my open market recs, they weren't the same. That's why.
Thank you. So as everyone has pointed out, there's often a two-step. I've gone through, I've completed everything. Always, you cannot save and continue too much. So save, and then you can resave, and then save again. If I were to fill this out and I forgot to save, and I went over to the Items tab, I'm going to lose everything I put on my General tab. So when you are entering information and you're done, before you go anywhere else, always remember to save. So I have put in the basic information I think I need. I hit save and continue, and it told me that it's saved, so I'm good. I can come down here on my items. I can look at that information. Everything looks right. However, within BidBuy, if I wanted to provide any additional information, let's say, for example, I know, well, I clicked before I finished speaking. So if I want to edit any of the information as it relates to this particular line item, this master, I can click on this little hyperlink that's right next to the item, and it's going to take me out and it's going to show me the details. In most cases, when you're ordering it, off of a master contract, the line items that CMS or DO-IT or the CPO's office, whoever created that master, are set up the way that the state wants them set up, and no additional edits are necessary. Every once in a while, we have, someone say, oh, you know what, I want to make sure that I am putting in the correct model number. And so if you wanted, you could edit this line item. There may be other reasons in the future to edit other kinds of line items, but you can, where you see the boxes, make edits. You see down there, it doesn't let me change the price. It's not letting me change anything else. I can't change the NIGP code, but I can add some information to the description. So I can put in, like, model number 3. And, of course, save and exit from that. I am going to continue working across my tabs from left to right. I see the vendors listed there. If there were options, multiple remit-to addresses for that vendor, they would be listed. In this particular case, this vendor has only one address. So I go through and select that address, and I click Save and Continue. And you see there, when I click Save, I got a yellow box that popped up that said the changes were saved successfully. That's how you know everything is fine. In BidBuy, if you get a yellow, anything that pops up in yellow, in general, that is a warning or a suggestion. If anything pops up in red, you're getting an error, and the system is going to stop you. So anything in yellow is a suggestion. Anything red is a hard error. So my vendors were good. Now I need to check and verify that I am shipping these to the right locations, and I have the option here. If there are multiple addresses, I can pick other addresses and make sure that my ship to and my bill to are correct. So I can go ahead and I can click Save and Continue. But before I do that, I need to apply those ship to addresses to this particular release. So it's this is one of the two-step processes here. I go and I look at the apply the ship to, and I say okay. I apply the bill to, and I say okay. And then I click Save and Continue. And in this particular case, for whatever reason, we have a glitch in our train environment with no ship to address. So
Change your order.
Yeah. Later, when I do the demo, it'll be in the screen source.
we should be good. Okay. So the good news is it's telling me that my changes were successful, and it's giving me a yellow suggestion. So one of the things about our system that we get questions about is, well, gosh, I didn't think the system would let me do this. I thought the system would tell me this. What's really important to know about BidBuy is the positive is it's very flexible, and the negative can sometimes be that it's very flexible. So it's flexible in that it's not going to restrict you in many cases from doing things, but you may also you also have a greater responsibility to make sure that you're reviewing everything. So every time you're putting information in there, you don't want to rely, as Amy was pointing out, if you get those error messages that pop up and we just get in the habit of clicking through, we do it all the time, you do want to stop, take the time to read them, and make sure you're understanding, oh, here's a yellow suggestion, I don't have a ship-to address, but that's something that I'm going to have to deal with. But it's giving, this one's telling me, this is just a suggestion, we're going to let you proceed. So you have to make that final determination as to whether the selections you've made are appropriate. On this requisition, we're going to come down here and look at the accounting tab, and you are going to see here, now I do have a red piece of advice. A red piece of advice in BidBuy says, you have got to fix this. And it's telling me that there is an accounting distribution that is missing and required. The one item that we have as a required feature within BidBuy as it relates to accounting is the special procurement type. It is the only required feature on the accounting tab. That does not mean that your agency cannot choose to use other fields on the accounting tab to record information, but for our purposes at this point, the only thing you're required to do is pick this special procurement type. So let me open this up. I'm going to make this bigger. Yeah. So what you see here in the train environment, there are 4 special procurement types. In our new production environment, there's a much longer list of special procurement types, but there is a reason why you are required to select one of these special procurement types from the accounting tab. Does anyone know what that is? Not applicable is an awesome choice, but in addition to our approval paths that we told you about, we also have approvals based on this accounting selection. So you'll see from the ones that we have in there, like I said, we now have a longer list. I'm sure Amy has that whole long list memorized right here. But many of you probably know anticipation of litigation is an exempt procurement under the code. So when we're going to do something that is exempt under the code, we need to bypass all the normal approval paths that exist within the system and bypass anyone who does not need to approve. So this is what this special procurement type does on the accounting tab, is it will essentially bypass all of the approvals it needs to bypass. So if I were to pick not applicable, that means we've got nothing special going on here. It's going to go straight down all of the standard approval paths that we have programmed into the system. It's normal. It's just going to go, and it's going to go through. However, if it is anticipation of litigation, and I select that one, now the system will know you need to bypass all the standard approvals, and you're going to go basically, no pay $100, $200, you just go right through, and you don't have to stop at many of the approvals. Same thing down here with purchase of care. Purchase of care is another thing exempt under the code. So if you're doing a procurement, it happens to be purchase of care, and you select purchase of care, you're going to avoid approvals that don't need to approve on that kind of a contract. Same thing with joint purchasing. Joint purchasing has some different approvals. When you pick that, it's going to hit where it needs to hit for joint purchasing. And Amy, since you've memorized it, what are some of the other ones that are now out there in production?
Emergency is one of them. We also have an exempt other. So there's, other than anticipation of litigation versus care, there's a whole slew of them listed in the code that are odds and ends. That's what I call them anyway. And so we have an exempt other option as well. So if it doesn't fit one of the categories that we have listed, there's always that option. And the purpose of these is they help route the document to or divert away from particular approvers.
is the purpose of that, and you're right, not applicable is the choice chosen by and large for most of them. Nothing special, pick not applicable, and it's going to go through all of its standard approval routing.
Or,
yes.
So if you choose something like exempt, there's still an approval path in there. It's not skipping everybody, correct?
It is, right. So there is an approval path in there for each of these special procurement types. And as Amy said, it's typically GOMBI is going to be on everything, so there's always going to be a GOMBI. And if at your agency you have, some that you've identified that you want to have these people look at these special procurement types, yes.
So that was set up already?
Yes. Yeah. So we're still refining that. This is one of the newer implementations that we've put into the system with 65 agencies and, 65 different approaches. This is one of the things that we're still probably tweaking a little bit. So if anybody runs into a problem and you're like, oh my gosh, my anticipation of litigation keeps hitting my SPO, call and let us know and we'll tweak that. Or, we need to make some other change.
Yeah, always check, one of the things is to be proactive, right? Like checking those messages that pop up before you hit okay. The routing path for this, so when Lori gets to the point of submitting for approval, we don't have approvals configured and trained, so we don't want to hold people up in their training. But one of the paths you see in your documents is a routing path. Nothing will show there until you submit it for approval. When you submit it for approval, it's going to say, it's going to go to these people. And then again, you have to say, okay, if you see that list and you see people who shouldn't be approving or people who should be and they're not listed, immediately, reach out to someone within your agency or contact state user to say, hey, this is not what I was expecting. Just like what Lori said, if it's hitting your SPO for anticipation of litigation, call your SPO and say, hey, it's hitting you, and let's contact state user and get this sorted out. So it will ask you before you submit for approval, are you sure these are the people that it's going to go to?
Yeah, it's not a point-and-click system. The good news is every one of you are required to operate this system. You are the ones that bring the brains to the system, make the decisions within the system. The system only serves to be your vehicle for doing that, but you are the decider. So you decide not applicable, and I'm going to select that. It's just, there's nothing special about it. And I have two choices down here, and this is another part of the bid by two step. So one is I can save that based on dollars, save that based on percentages. What that really is designed for is, what if you were doing a procurement and you wanted to essentially separate it under different procurement types, or if you wanted to use different funds. That's what the intent of those buttons are. For our purposes, we simply come down here and we say save based on percentages. Right here, this line item is 100%. And so I'm going to say I want to save this based on this 100% is not applicable. But you could, if, for example, I was adding on a fire extinguisher and then maybe a fire extinguisher lawyer, right? Because I needed an expert in fire extinguishers, and this was in anticipation of litigation. If I had a separate line item on here and I wanted another portion of this line item, I might save some of the accounting specific to the line item. So that's why you have to do this, is you have to say, I really want everything to be saved and to be saved based on the percentages. Once you do that, it's going to come down here and it's grayed out and it shows you that it's been saved. And the last thing that I need to do is say rebuild for all items. So the rebuild for all items is part of the two-step process that applies it to everything. This is everything has been taken care of, this has been applied, and we can go ahead and move on. And you'll see that once I did that, say based on percentages, and then rebuild it for all items, that red warning that I had up there has gone away, and I've met the requirements of the accounting task, so I don't have any hard stops anymore. Does that make sense to everyone? I think it's, I found it confusing when it was first explained to me, so if I didn't explain it well, or you have questions in a week, let us know. But it's essentially pick the one that applies, save it, and rebuild it, and you should be good. As Amy said, until we apply and get the approvers, you know, I talked about how approvers get picked in real time based on the way you complete all the tabs. Since we haven't done that yet, there's no one showing up, but if you come back after you were to have sent this off for approval, this tab will show you the approvers, but they're just not there yet because we haven't sent it. Any attachments? So what attachments might I need to put on a rack for 10 fire extinguishers?
It depends.
It depends.
Procurement justification form.
Probably a procurement justification form. And there might be, and you have an Appendix B. Your Appendix B is your suggestions for forms you might need to attach at a certain stage. So you could look at your Appendix B and say, do I need a procurement justification form? Are there any other forms that I need here on my requisition? Do I have an agency-specific form that we always attach on requisitions? It's called our, Z72R3 form, and we always attach it. Whatever forms you need to attach, again, you have to make that decision. The system's not going to decide for you. But if you were, I could go out, and there are two kinds of attachments within the system. One is a file off of your computer. The other is a form within the system. So depending, and your Appendix B tells you whether certain things are files or forms, I'm going to go out here and I am going to look for a file. I'm going to search for it. I'm going to see if I can find it. I don't know why this is acting like this, but if I could select my file and save and continue. And then, or save and exit. Oh, I selected one. I thought I selected one. And you'll see here, once I've gone through that process, it will attach the document. So what it didn't show me, which I expected to see, and I don't know if I don't know why it looks a little different than it normally looks, but you can basically go and look out on your computer and go out to whatever drive you normally save your documents in, go ahead, attach your form, and save it, and it will be attached there. And you see over here, it indicates who attached it, it indicates the attached date, and very importantly, it asks you whether or not you want to show these forms to the vendor. So in this particular case, typically on a requisition, you're not going to show your vendor your procurement justification form. That's an internal state form that we use amongst ourselves. But if you were attaching something that you wanted to show to vendor, you have got to make that conscious choice. Very, very important. Once you do this for a little while, it'll be second nature, and you're going to always remember. I got to remember what I'm showing and what I'm not showing. But in this particular case, as you're just getting started, you're always going to want to remember that. So save your options for your attachments.
Are you able to go back and make a change after you get out of that screen?
You are able to make it a change, yes, absolutely. So something can be as the status up here as in progress. So you could get halfway through this process, go to lunch, almost time, and come back and start working on it again. Go back through all those tabs. Up until the time you send it, you'll be able to go in and out and make changes as often as you want.
So what if you forgot to click the show vendor?
So let's go back.
Realize it like after it's been approved or whatever.
After it's been approved is another story. When it goes through its approval process, most everything is going to be locked down on a requisition. So you're going to want to make sure that you get it right. Now, you have some options. It's not a completely unforgiving system, and we'll see some of that later. As you go to move throughout, and not necessarily as much on a quick buy, but on other types, when you get to the bid stage, let's say, if we were going to the bid stage, you can put some notes in there. You can update it and kind of clarify things. But you do, before you send it, you do want to check and double check and make sure that you've got everything right.
And also, too, for requisition, for a release requisition, when you select a vendor, that release requisition is still internal to the agency. So you're not making anything public at that point in time. Now, you'll understand a little bit more when we get to the small purchases on why that's there for a requisition, because there is an RFQ functionality for small purchases under $10,000. That is a rec document type. So it makes a little bit more sense when we cover that. Mm-hmm. But if for some reason on a requisition you're not doing an RFQ and it's just a release, there's still nothing public as long as what we cover in the small purchase step isn't accidentally included on your release document. So you shouldn't get to a point on a release document that you're accidentally showing something to a vendor, even if you forgot to punch it.
Right. On your requisition stage, it's very preliminary, so it's not, really being sent out, and so but as you are getting ready to send something off for approval, you can get yourself into trouble and have to start all over again if you get something completely wrong, because once it's approved,
and typically what we suggest is if you realize, oh, look, see who was on for their approval, call them and say, reset this.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So, and again, every time before I leave a tab, even if I haven't changed it, I save and continue, because just get in that habit of every time before you go anywhere, save and continue. You will save yourself some grief. Note, I can type any kind of note I want here. Don't forget, you're going to need to get something. Whatever you want, remind SPO, ... So any notes that you want to make, you can go ahead and make notes to yourself. You can also delete notes. If you added a note and now you took care of it and you don't want that note there anymore, you can delete it. Once you save your note, however, it's going to date and timestamp it, so you have that. You'll still be able to, though, come back and delete that before you send it off.
Also, don't forget that your notes are open to FOIA, so make sure that whatever you put into the system is professional, whether or not it's private to you in the system. There's always the possibility of getting up in some other publication.
The procurement file will consist both of all the attachments that you attach as well as the data that's input into the system. So Amy's point is right. FOIA-able, be professional. Reminders. This is such a good part of the system. It's the page the tab doesn't want to open for some reason, doesn't want to load. Returning. Quite honestly, the reminders is probably one of the best features of the entire system. So in addition to all of our fabulous approval paths and workflows that are now in the system, I can set myself a reminder. Maybe I know my fire extinguisher expires in 2 years, so I want to remind myself, in 18 months or 20 months, I need to go out and get myself a new fire extinguisher. I need to remember to post this. I need to remember to send. I need to do something. I can go in. I select the due date of my reminder. So let's say I decide in 18 months, in 2019, I don't know what 18 months is, March, of 2019, I need to buy another one of these. So I'm going to set myself a reminder for March of 2019. That's not 18 months. And I'm going to say, the note is purchase replacement fire extinguishers. Who am I going to remind? I can remind anyone that's in the system that I have access to. So you're not going to be able to remind anyone in the state, but anyone within your agency, your SPO, anyone that you have access to, I can remind. In this case, though, I want to remind myself, hopefully I'm on there somewhere. I'm there. I want to remind myself. And I want to remind myself on that day. So this days prior to remind is a little weird and confusing. If I say I want to remind 0 days prior, it will remind me on March 7th. If I say it 1 day prior to the due date, it would remind me on March 6th, and so forth. Works itself backwards. But put how many days prior to remind. I want my reminder on March 7th. I want to get an email, and that's what I want to remind myself. And I click Save and Continue. And now I have a reminder, and I can set more. I can set other people reminders. I can set all the reminders I want. But I'm happy with that. I just need one reminder, and I really need to order this fire extinguisher and go to lunch. So I click down here on the Summary tab, and it's waiting. And when I get to the Summary tab, it is exactly that. The Summary tab should show you all of the basic information that's here that you have input throughout the system. This is your opportunity. Don't skip it. Don't get in the habit of just don't click. Because it's easy. We all make mistakes. We, don't think about something. We see something we want to do. This one came up with an estimated cost because it was 10 of them. They were $100. It auto-calculated and is showing me that the estimated cost is $1,000 on this particular procurement. That estimated cost is going to drive any approval paths that are relevant to it. And I just look at everything and I say, oh, do I have everything correct? Did I attach everything that I needed to attach? Do I have a reminder? It shows me I've got a reminder on there, and I am all happy with it, good to go. I am going to submit this for approval. You'll see here, and for the purposes of our training environment, what you would normally see at this point is the list of approvers that this is going to hit. You look at that list of approvers, and you say, yep, that's exactly what I expected. It's going to my supervisor, and it's going, to the APO, and then you can go ahead and continue on. And this, for our purposes, so that we don't get stuck while we're doing training, we select automatic approval, but I think Samantha also mentioned you can manually add approvers. So let's say you're buying the fire extinguishers, and you see the approvers that are on the approval path, but you also want your facilities person to look at this and approve it because that person is the expert in fire extinguishers. I could go in here and manually add, as long as I have access to the facility person and that person's in bid buy, I can manually add them as an approver. But for our purposes, I do automatic approval. I click Save and Continue, and it tells me that my changes were saved successfully and that I have a new purchase order. In the case of this, you'll see that up in the right corner, my status changed to gone to a purchase order. And if I click on that, as Samantha said, the number is going to change. So in this particular case, now instead of me being on a rec, I've got a P for a purchase order. Here's the new number of that purchase order. The :30 tells me it's a release. If there's no colon and no number, I'm doing another kind of procurement. But if this is the 30th release off of this master PO, so PO 1721, this is the 30th release. This purchase order is shown in sent status. That's where we all want to get to with our procurements, is get them sent. So it's in sent status. I can come down here and I can look at any of that information. That is it for this morning. After we come back for lunch, Amy's going to actually show you the new way that direct releases are working. We've got something that we think most agencies are going to be happy with, but that's just your basic look at everything you're ever going to do in bid buy. It's going to somehow be some combination of that. So, come back at 5 after 1. I know sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So come back at 5 after 1. If you think of any questions while you're gone, we'll start out with a little Q&A, and then Amy will get started showing you the new way of doing direct releases. And chat.
You're going to have them check all the
Yeah, we've got a ticket in, and now that guy that was here this morning has to get the ticket and come back.
Okay.
And I see those of you that are out there that there are a number of questions that you have, and we will answer those after lunch. I'm sorry that we didn't get those, so I'll get back to them, I promise.